Welcome to the Shepherd Podcast. Thank you for joining us. This is an opportunity to familiarize you with some people in our church, school, and childcare and tell you some of the great stories that exist within our family of faith. And today I'm really happy to bring on board to the show Judy Pohlmeyer. Judy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, and Judy has a great story related to adoption, and I've admired you very much, Judy, for your love as a granny and all the efforts that you've made for your grandchildren. So would love to hear those stories. But first of all, I always like to tell people who somebody is, and maybe people have seen you around church. They've probably seen Jessa around church because she's very friendly.
Yes, very cordial.
Yeah. And so just to tell people a little bit more about who you are, your background, your career, how you became associated with Shepherd of the Hills. Tell us about Judy.
Okay. Well, I am Judy Pohlmeyer. I am a born and raised Missouri Synod Lutheran. My grandparents immigrated here from Germany. Grandfather came in through Ellis Island, and then the other three came in through Galveston. Came from a large family. Always thought that I wanted to have 12 children. My maternal great-grandfather had 21 children.
21 children.
My mother was one of 16, 12 lived to adulthood. There were 3 sets of twins.
Wow.
My father was one of 12, one set of twins. So when we all got together, there were many cousins playing.
Really?
And I just was so fascinated by that. I always said I was going to have 12 children. And as it turned out, I couldn't have any. So we ended up adopting our son. But back prior to that, I didn't want to work. I never wanted to work. I wanted to be a mother and a housewife. Mm-hmm. But it didn't work out that way. I had to work. So I've done a numerous amount of things. I've worked for banks. I've worked for universities. But my latest stint was with construction management here in San Antonio. After I divorced in 1992, prior to that, I had been a civil service employee for the United States Navy. And I had reinstatement rights, but when I moved to San Antonio, the president had put a freeze on hiring. Oh. So I was not able to get back into that. And so I went to work for Trinity University, and then after that, went to work for construction management. And that's where I retired 3 years ago.
Okay.
And very, very happy that I don't have to work anymore. But it was fun while it lasted. But
yeah,
I'm glad it's done.
Yeah.
I have been a member here at Shepherd for 16 years.
Okay.
Visited numerous churches, Lutheran churches here in San Antonio, but never found that niche, never found that comfortable home until I came to Shepherd. And the first time that I visited Myrtle Julig, who is now residing in heaven, she and I used to work together at Trinity University.
Oh, okay.
She met me at the door and she just welcomed me. And from there on, I just knew that this was the place for me and my son.
Wow. Wonderful. Now, was there a point in time where you were planning to move away and look for a new church in a new town, but then, of course, plans changed?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was, and that was prior to me and my grandchildren.
Yeah.
Before they came into the picture,
yeah.
I wanted to move to the Brenham area. That's where my dad was from.
Right.
We spent many a summer there with family reunions and stuff, and I just loved the Brenham, Lee County area.
Yeah.
And wanted to do that, but now we just visit a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're still here, a part of this ministry, and glad your family is a part of the ministry here. So main reason, I really wanted people to hear about your adoption story. And in fact, as you're describing the part of your life before the grandchildren, you reminded me that your son was adopted. So you already had adoption as a part of your story, going those years back.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the story of my life that needs to be put into a book.
Oh, yeah?
The story of adoption. When we found out that we couldn't have children, we, of course, went to numerous adoption agencies and put our name on the list. Long wait, anywhere from 12 to 16 years wait. And we were working with 3, And then, of course, all our friends knew that we wanted to adopt. So by word of mouth, someone knew of this young girl who was pregnant and going to put her baby up for adoption. Uh-huh. And that was our son.
Yeah.
So we got him that way. And back then, we didn't want open adoption. We just felt like it was not the safest thing from us. Number one, we lived in East Texas, a small town. And we were worried that that might be too close to be to the birth mother, if we knew her. Mm-hmm. She was only 15 at the time.
Wow.
So we had closed adoption. I've never regretted that. My son has always known that he's adopted. That has never affected him because, as he puts it, you're my mom. Nothing would ever change that.
Yeah.
You're my mother.
Yeah.
But he did find his birth mother about, 4 years or so ago. Mm-hmm. And after finding her, he even said, I'm glad it took this long to find her because it would not have worked out well. Mm-hmm. She has a lot of mental and physical issues that it just wouldn't have worked for her to have been in the picture.
So was there a point in which you sat him down and told him that he was adopted, or was that just something that was understood growing up? How did he come to that realization?
When we got him, the very first thing I went out and bought was a plaque that I hung in his room, and it said, not flesh of my flesh, nor bone of my bone, but still miraculously my own.
Wow.
And then it had more to the point. And so I would read that to him. And then we also bought a adoption book explaining adoption. And being a big proponent of reading to children faithfully a lot, that book was read every day. So he grew up knowing adoption. And then as he got older, he questioned, okay, what does that mean really? You know? And it was, we talked about it, and then he was like, oh, okay. And he ran off and played, it was just no big deal to him.
He didn't know any other way.
He didn't know any other way.
Yeah.
And like he says today, you're my mother, not her. So, So it worked. But then I divorced in 1992. He was 6 years old.
Yeah.
And the reason why I divorced was because I was in an abusive relationship. Oh. And the day that my son walked up to me and hit me because he thought it was okay was the day I knew that I had to get him away from that. Wow. So that he would learn differently and not be taught by what he saw. Mm-hmm. So we moved to San Antonio, and it was hard. It was hard being a single mom and going through everything. I'm a girl. I don't like boy things. I don't like bugs. I don't like sports. I don't like all of this. Yeah. And I was raising a boy.
Yeah.
But we have a very good relationship. We're very close. A lot of struggles. He had his trials and tribulations, especially in high school.
Yeah.
But once he got older, that's where all the problems started.
Okay.
Really.
Okay.
He met this young lady, and she had been married before, and she had 2 children from that marriage. And before my son and her married, they got pregnant. And they had a baby boy that he is now 8 years old. He was born with many, many health issues. Mm. And the doctor said that he probably would not live to be a teenager. We all decided that the best thing to do would be, because the foster family wanted to adopt him, was to let them. Mm-hmm. They wanted to take care of him. And my son and his wife, his girlfriend at the time, they just were in no position to care for a handicapped child. Mm-hmm. I do not have any contact with him. I don't know where he is or anything. Oh, wow. It's closed adoption.
Okay.
Closed adoption. Then my son and his girlfriend got married, and they got pregnant right away. My daughter-in-law is a heroin addict. So Child Protective Services is there. When a woman delivers addicted to drugs, Child Protective Services will immediately take the baby away. Mm-hmm. I didn't know until she was 3 days old that she had been born.
Oh.
And by this time, the other family, the family that had her 2 half-brothers, already had her.
Okay.
Of course, she was in the hospital for 26 days too, in NICU, until she went through withdrawal. So I didn't see Jessa for the first time until she was 5 months old.
I can't believe you're describing Jessa,
I know.
this healthy, joyful little girl.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And it was a battle for me to even get to see her. And the very first time was just for an hour at that family's home. And in an hour, you have to be out of there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started fighting for more visitation, and I did get it. Mm-hmm. I got Sunday visitations, which I requested because I wanted to bring her to church.
Mm-hmm.
I had her baptized when she was 6 months old.
Yeah.
Here, after the church service. Mm-hmm. She has come to church with me faithfully ever since. Mm-hmm. She loves church.
I think you come to church with her.
I think so too. She misses Sunday school very much. Oh, yeah. Can't wait for the corona to be over to where we can get her back into Sunday school because she misses that so much. But I started the legal battle with her about 5.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And still have not completely won complete, total custody of her. I have possession of her now. I have had for 6 months, and we will go to court soon to hopefully get that finalized.
Okay.
And she was born in 2014. In 2015, December 26th, my son and daughter-in-law had another child, Colin. Mm-hmm. He was born at 24 weeks. He was born 3.5 months early. Mm-hmm. And I was with him every day in NICU, knowing full well that he was coming home with me. Mm-hmm. He did not know his mother and father. They were not allowed to visit with him in NICU or in my home. I had to put my foot down about that because drugs were not coming into my home. They were not going to influence him in any way. So after 3.5 months, he came home. Joyful day. He was finally home with me.
Yeah.
Jessa got to see her brother for the first time. And she was just so in love. That the first time she saw him, that look on their faces, just like, oh, this is my sibling.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted more for him. I knew I could raise him. But at that time, I was still working. And I didn't think that was the best thing for him. He had 2 surgeries while he was in NICU. He had allergies. He had numerous other little things going on. And me trying to work full time, my goal was I really wanted to retire at the age of 70. But that wasn't going to work if I had him with me. You know, he needed more. He needed a mother and a daddy. Mm-hmm. I didn't know where to turn. All these numerous things going through my head, but I just didn't know where to turn. And one day I knew I wanted to place him for adoption, but I didn't want to make a mistake. I didn't want to go to the wrong agency. I didn't want to go to the wrong people. I wanted to be sure that everything was going to be perfect because I was not going to let go of him unless it was perfect. Mm-hmm. So one day I'd had a rough day at work and I came home, picked him up from daycare, and he was cranky and he wasn't feeling good and fighting traffic coming home, you know. I got him home and I put him in his bed and I got on my knees and I said, Lord, you have got to hit me with a loud thunderbolt because your little whispers aren't cutting it anymore. Mm. I need to know where to go and that I'm doing the right thing. The very next day, he answered my prayer. Mm. And that's when I was introduced to Aggie Land Pregnancy Outreach. Let me say that again. Aggie Land Pregnancy Outreach. They are housed out of College Station, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And that is all they handle is open adoptions.
Oh, okay.
Every birth parent and every adoptive parents have to agree to the same things. And that is that they will stay in contact with the birth family forever.
Okay.
They have to be practicing Christians. Of course, they have to have a good income. They have to have a nice home, a place to house the child.
Mm-hmm.
But also, for the first 2 years of the child's life, one parent has to stay home with that child.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, of course, they have a profession that requires them to work, that they have to maintain their certification, a doctor, a lawyer, or something like that. Then they can work part-time, but only 20 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I found out about this agency was from a lady next door to my office. She came to me and she said, I have just hired someone and y'all have a lot in common and y'all need to talk and y'all need to talk quick. Come to find out, she had gone through the same thing. And when she placed her son for adoption, the family that adopted him started Aggieland Pregnancy Outreach because they saw the need for open adoption.
Uh-huh.
So I talked with her for a long time and immediately called Aggieland Pregnancy Outreach. And the very next weekend, they were in my home. They stayed for 3 days, stayed in a hotel, of course, but they got to know me. They got to know Colin. They asked questions. I asked questions. Everything was taken care of in that weekend.
Very thorough.
Very thorough.
Yeah.
They brought me books and books and books of families that they thought I might consider for me to go through and study and choose from.
So you had that much control in the process?
Oh, yes. I chose the family for Colin.
How about that?
I did.
Is that typical in an adoption process?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Wow.
Mm-mm. We met the family. I met the family first. I went there and visited with them. Mm-hmm. They came to San Antonio and visited with us. Because Colin was with Child Protective Services, it was a process. I had to adopt him first. Because if I hadn't, Child Protective Services could have taken him away from me.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I had to adopt him first.
Okay.
I had to follow all their rules and do everything that they required.
Mm-hmm.
Once that was over and I adopted him, we had so many occasions to visit. And the couple that adopted him, they said that they knew immediately. They loved him and they knew they wanted him. Mm. He was 1 year and 3 months when I placed him in their heart.
Yeah. Wow.
That was the hardest day.
Yeah. You went to their home with him?
Yes.
And then you left him?
Yes.
Mm.
Very hard.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
But I knew it was what he needed.
Yep.
I wasn't going to keep him for selfish reasons. Mm-hmm. I knew that's what he needed.
Yeah.
So Alice Clement went with me because I needed to back up.
You needed that emotional support.
I did.
Yeah.
I've never regretted for 1 second having placed him for adoption.
You did what was right for him.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I've said it so many times. I gave him the best gift I'll ever give him. Mm-hmm. And that's a mother and a daddy.
Yeah. And you're still in contact?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
They're going to be here next weekend.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Jess's birthday, and they're coming. We celebrate as many holidays as we can together.
Oh, cool.
And, of course, all the birthdays.
Yeah.
And just spur-of-the-minute trips. That's where Jess and I spent our vacation this year, was in Bryan. They live in Bryan.
Yeah.
And then in 2017, my son and daughter-in-law got pregnant again with another little boy, William. And this time I told my son and daughter-in-law that I couldn't do this again. I couldn't have Child Protective Services involved in my life and the baby's life because it no longer becomes your life. I had to do everything according to Child Protective Services. They would pop in unexpected. I had to move bedrooms around because they didn't like the one Colin was in. Oh. I had no control over my life.
Yeah.
They showed up one night at 7:30 at night. In the winter, it was cold. And of all things, they just came to see how things were going. And it was bedtime for Colin. And of all things, they wanted to go into my backyard and to go through my shed.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
So luckily there were 2 CPS workers there, and I handed the baby over to one and I said, okay, let's go. So we went outside, I opened up the shed, she looked in, okay, turned around and went back in the house.
Wow. So you can never completely let your guard down because you don't know when a pop-in visit's going to happen. So,
never knew.
So you didn't want to go down that road again?
No, I did not want to go down that road again. Okay. So they agreed with me that the best thing to do was for them to contact Aggieland Pregnancy Outreach, for them to say, we want to terminate our parental rights as soon as possible while the baby's still in the hospital to where the new mother and father can take him straight from NICU to their home. So I chose the family again. Again, I went through all these books and I chose the family. Now, the reason why Colin's family didn't adopt him was because they found out shortly after adopting him that they were pregnant.
Isn't that great?
It was wonderful. Wonderful. Their baby was due in December, and my grandson was due in November. So that would have been like raising twins.
Right.
So they had to decline on that request.
Oh, how great for them that they were able to have a child.
Yes. Yes. And she's my grandchild too.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't feel any differently about her than we do about the other 3. They're all my grandchildren.
Yeah.
So here's a mother who couldn't have children. I adopted one child, wanted to have 12, only got 1. And now in reality, I have 3 sons, 2 daughters, and 4 grandchildren.
Wow.
So my family has grown to my wishes.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
But this new family came in, and they also live in Bryan. My 2 grandsons live only about 10 miles apart from each other. Huh. They stay in close contact. I've gotten to know my grandson's other grandparents. We're just all one big happy family now. It's
wow. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
I mean, rewind your life, 6 years ago. Could you ever have envisioned all of this?
No. Wow. No, never.
Oh, so God's expanded your family.
He has.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. But now it's Jess is living with me, and my retirement is not like I thought it was going to be, but it's better. Yeah. It's better. She is such a joy. She is so precious, so loving, so kind. She has such a big heart.
Yes, she does.
I couldn't have asked for more. Could not have.
Really cool.
Yes.
Really cool. Mm-hmm. So when people see you and Jessa at church now, hopefully they'll have some background on your story and her story. And I know that bringing Jessa up to know Jesus as her Savior is very important to you.
Very.
And, she's really just embraced her faith, and she loves being a part of things at church. What are some of the faith lessons and life lessons that you really want to impress on Jessa?
Well, more than anything, Jesus loves her. I tell her that every day. Jessa, Jesus loves you so much. And she will tell other people the same thing now. I want her to know that there's nothing in life that she can't conquer. All she has to do is walk with Jesus and ask him for help. Mm-hmm. If she's troubled or if she's having a hard time with something, just ask him. She's very knowledgeable on her Bible stories and her songs that she loves. Jesus Loves Me, of course. She sang that at a children's sermon one time, if you'll remember.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I Am Jesus' Little Lamb.
Yeah.
Of course, they both mean a lot to me. I have sang those to all of my grandbabies and my son since they were born. Baptismal hymns for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, more than anything, I bring her to church so that she can learn the way I learned. Mm-hmm. Growing up, I didn't have an option. We went to church. We went to Sunday school. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know until I grew up that it wasn't an option. We just went.
Well, yeah.
We just went. That was normal.
Right.
And that's the way I want Jessica to be.
Yeah.
I want her to know that this is just a normal event. We do this like we do everything else. We go to church, we go to work, we go to school. Church is a given. We go to Jesus' house to worship and to learn and to hear and to sing and to praise. Mm-hmm. And she loves that.
Yeah.
Music is very important to her, so she loves that part the most about church.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think now since the pandemic, I think I'm the only one that checked out a hymnal. I'm the only one that I see carrying a hymnal because she likes to follow with her finger.
Oh, great.
In the hymnal.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
So,
very good.
Very important that she learns all of that.
Yeah. Great.
She's learned how to pray.
Yeah.
We do that faithfully every meal. Mm-hmm. In fact, I asked her, she has now gone back to in school. The first 4 weeks were at home. Granny teaching her. Granny doesn't know how to teach, so I had a hard time. But we did it. But now she's in school. And the first day when she came home, I asked her, I said, well, did you bless your food at lunchtime? And she said, oh, I forgot. I said, okay, well, let's try not to forget that. So the next day, before I could even ask, she told me, Granny, I blessed my food today. That's great, Jessa. Maybe others will join with you now,
Yeah,
so
that really is great to see her taking the lead on those kinds of things and owning her faith.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we talked about Jess's faith. I want to talk a little more about your faith. How has your faith helped you through all of this? Because it has been a roller coaster in a lot of ways. I mean, you've had things have not turned out the way you expected financially, just in terms of, other people coming into your life like CPS, not having the kind of control you wanted to have. Many, many years of working through legalities. I mean, there's been stress, having to give a grandchild over to somebody and trust him to a new family. Through all these things and much more, how has your faith helped you in this journey?
Well, I think, honestly, I think God started preparing me before my grandchildren were born.
Really?
I really do. I sit back and I realize events that happened in my life back then that I questioned why. What's going on? Why this? And I think that his hands were already, well, he knows what our life is, know. But I was taking severe steps to pay off all of my debt. And when I retired, I had no debt. I had no house payment, no car payment. I owed nothing. I could not have done all of this financially had I still had a house payment, a car payment. Everything that I had from my retirement is gone. 5.5 years of legally fighting for custody of Jessa has taken everything. But my faith is strong. I know that tomorrow is going to be a better day. Everything's going to work out for the good. God is in control. I just need to step back and just wait to hear what he wants me to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Without my faith, I wouldn't be here with her. I mean, I'd be here, but she wouldn't be with me without my faith.
Yeah.
I knew that I could do this. I knew that it is what's best for her.
Mm-hmm.
The situation that she was in, I'm sure some people think, well, she was in a home. Why did you have to take her away from her 2 half-brothers? That was not a good environment. The family she was with was not a good family to be with. Mm-hmm. The woman is in a nursing home now. She's 84 years old. So Jessa was in a home with 3 men. That's not where she needs to be. Mm. She needs to be with her granny who loves her, who will do anything in the world for her, who wants the best for her. I want to teach her. I want to show her. I want to lead her. I want her to grow up to be a marvelous woman at whatever she chooses to be. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Whether that be that ballerina or that doctor.
Yeah. You're doing a good thing. You're doing a noble thing. And you can see God's blessing in many ways. On what you're doing. Yeah. And you are an inspiration. You truly are.
I think my biggest goal through all of this is that I did a little video for Aggieland Pregnancy Outreach as well. And it's because I want people to know, not just mothers and dads, that maybe they aren't married or for whatever reason they need to place their child for adoption. Mm-hmm. I want the grandparents to know as well that you can place your grandchildren for adoption and you don't have to lose them. Mm. I will be Colin and William's grandmother forever. Mm-hmm. I will not lose anything by placing them for adoption. Mm-hmm. Because I did it right. Mm. I waited and I listened and I did it right.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about, you had that prayer for God to make it crystal clear, and then it was the next day.
The next day.
That you found out about, say the name again,
Aggieland Pregnancy Outreach. It's in College Station.
Okay. And you would recommend them highly?
Highly.
Sounds like
yes,
yeah.
I do.
Great. Well, you never know who's watching. This is going to be online, and there may be somebody watching who is in the situation where they needed that kind of information. So we'll see how God uses this interview, but certainly he's used it to inspire me and Melody on the other side of the camera, and those who will be watching. I know it will have the same kind of effect.
I hope it does. If I can help just one, especially grandparents, to do this, then my job is complete.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Judy, for sharing your story.
Thank you.
It's a very personal story.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love sharing it. It's a beautiful, beautiful story.
Great. Well, maybe as a result of watching this, someone will want to hear more about your story, and they'll know who you are and
give me a call.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
And thank you so much for watching. I hope you got a lot out of this interview, and look forward to seeing you next time on the Shepherd Podcast. God's blessings.